Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Hi, Govind here. Before we dive in, I want to let you know that you're listening to a special edition of Paper Napkin Wisdom, the Freedom Framework series built around a new book by Michael Walsh. In this series, Michael and I explore what it really takes to build a business that works for you, not the other way around. We're talking about freedom in your business, freedom from your business, and freedom because of your business. We'll talk about what each of those things mean. Each episode brings you tools, insights, and in-depth conversation between Michael and I about how to bring this kind of freedom into your life. If you're ready to design a business that you don't need to escape from, you're in the right place. Listen in.
Welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom, where we share pearls of wisdom shared by some of the world's top entrepreneurs, leaders, and difference makers. Here's your host, Govind Jayaraman.
Hi, I'm Govind Jayaraman, and this is Paper Napkin Wisdom, episode 262. I'm so glad that you're joining us for part 8, another powerful moment in our ongoing Freedom by Design series. If you've ever felt like you're chasing results without knowing whether they'll last, or if you've ever wondered whether your people are growing as fast as your business, this episode is for you. We're joined again by Michael Walsh, founder of Walsh Business Growth and strategic growth advisor for high-performing organizations. Michael has a gift for taking complexity and boiling it down to what really matters. And in this 8th installment of our special series, he does it again. In this conversation, Michael and I explore how real, lasting results come from the intersection of 4 dimensions, not just financial wins or technical excellence, but the synergy of people, performance, and sustainability. We break down the hidden danger of over-indexing in one area and the cost of neglecting another, and how you can build momentum that won't burn you or your team out. So lean in and listen closely, because what if the breakthrough you've been waiting for isn't in working harder, it's in aligning the dimensions of your results? Let's dive in. Michael Walsh, welcome back to Paper Napkin Wisdom. We're laying down another stone today in this pathway.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is exciting. So if this is the first one here, the first time you're here, that's great. But this is part of a series. This is a special series where we're talking about laying down these specific stones in a pathway ultimately to win freedom in the business and from the business. And we started talking about the 4 danger zones that are hidden from most companies as they scale, the danger zones relating to people and the exponential relationships, one-on-one relationships that occur as we grow an organization, the 4 driving influences of human behavior, which led us to rethinking the core of the business, the social contract between the owner and individual employees within an organization. And the last episode, we talked about hiring smart, and hiring smart being, half the game. And that brings us to today's napkin, which is part of the rest of the game, which is training and growing your people. It's all about results. And then right underneath that, in a box, you have the dimensions of the results. What does this mean, Michael?
Okay, so if you're trying to gain freedom in your business, it really means that you get to do the parts that you love and that are strategic in terms of the growth of the business. When you're looking for freedom from your business, you want to be able to take more time off. And if you're looking for freedom because of your business, you're really looking at how do I grow the asset value, but also how do I grow the impact that my organization can actually provide, okay? And it's got to be able to expand without spreading me so thin that I become a slave to the business. So when I look at this, I can't do the stuff that I love or the stuff that's strategically significant unless I've grown the people in my business, who are the people who actually generate the results, unless I've given them access to grow sufficiently that they can do it and take care of my clients and customers, or our collective clients and customers. I don't get any freedom from the business if I can't leave. So my people need to be strong for me to be able to leave. And I need to have enough of them that are strong. And the asset value of the business isn't worth much if I'm the core of everything, and it has to revolve around me. The minute I leave, the asset value goes away, and there's only so much impact I can have on my own. So one of the elements, I mean, we talked, like you said, we talked last time about hiring smart. Half the game is who you get in your doors, but then the other half is like, what do I do when I get them in my doors? And so the question is, how do I design the training and growth of my people? Because I got to tell you, a lot of times people say, training and growth of your people. Yeah, it's another to-do on the list. Listen, it's everything we can do to get our products and services. And again, we're dealing with service-based businesses, or businesses with a strong service component, even if they are a product, that are based in the expertise of their people. So if I need the expertise of my people to do this stuff, if I'm not training and growing them, I'm going to have a problem in terms of a number of, like my ability to gain that freedom. But the other side of it is, the reason people don't do that is because they feel like it's everything I can do to deliver. I don't have time to train them on top of that. It feels like I've got competing priorities. And the reason that it feels like you've got competing priorities is because you're just not doing it right yet. Now, that's not to say there's anything wrong with an individual or business owner. It's just, if they haven't grown beyond a certain size, they just don't know how to align performance of actually achieving the results for clients and growing their people. They just don't know how to do them concurrently.
Yeah. So I think this is super important. I think it's really important also because you're talking about training and growth of a business, training and growth of the people within the business. And I think a lot of people think that they're training them. Oh, I'm going to train them on how to do their job. That's not what you're saying. I mean, you're saying, yeah, you got to train them in the business, but you're talking about results, train them in delivering results, right? I mean, that's very different.
Even though it looks the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the same thing. Well, kind of, but not really.
All right. So let's talk about the similarities and why people feel that way, and then let's get into the differences.
Well, the first thing I want to do is, can I put a step in before that?
Sure. Yeah.
Don't surprise you that I might want to do that.
Yeah. It's sort of our pattern. I ask for something, you give me something else.
Yeah. It's like that. All right. Yeah. We'll eventually get to that.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the thing. Everything, a business generates is designed directly to address one of the three elements of the value exchange. It's either got to increase the customer value, it's got to protect and grow profit, or it's got to contribute to the professional growth of the people within the organization. So I need to be able to generate value that from the customer's perspective. I've got to do it in a way that gives me profit, and I want to grow my people. Because what we talked about is rethinking. When we talked about rethinking the core, we said, instead of having the core, traditionally the core of the business, as you recall, is to it has been the ability to generate a result for the client that also gives you profit. And the people are the groups that actually do that. And we said, well, the only way this works is if you actually include the people as part of the core. So it's not just the ability to generate the result as the core. The people in their, in individual teams of knowledge workers are the ones that are actually achieving that result for the customer and at the profit. And then as a result, what they get is they get professional growth. So we're claiming we got to give them professional growth as well as part of the core. Okay. Right. So given that that's the case, it's like everything anybody does has got to either increase customer value, protect my profit, or grow my people. Now think about it. My finance department protects my profit. Okay, getting the invoicing right keeps my customers happy. I'm not overbilling them, so that kind of contributes to that too. My production team, they're all about generating the value for the customer. My salespeople are actually making a promise to my customer that they'll get the value of that stuff. The HR is making sure that the people get what they need so that they can actually accomplish those things. And I do need to make sure that there's professional growth actively going on for my people. And again, that if I focus on those things, that actually works real well. Now, the other half of that, okay, is when I look at it from my people's perspective, okay, what is it that they want? Well, they want to master more skills. Because again, in an expertise-driven business, they want to master the skills. They want to continue to learn and grow as professionals in their thing, whether it's a professional service, whether it's skilled trade, whether it's training and development, wherever they are, they want to be able to master more skills. The second thing they want to do is they obviously want to develop their career or their profession. Okay, people in an expertise-driven environment want to, grow in their profession. And the other thing they want to be able to contribute more to other people. If I've hired right, I'm dealing with people who really want to contribute to other people. So they want to contribute to clients, but they also want to contribute to each other as well. So I've got those three things are really what I'm looking for, or that my people are looking for. And as far as I'm concerned, it needs to create value for the customer, give me more profit, or support the growth of the people in there, as far as that's concerned. So it's actually a very specific strategic objective I have when I'm talking about growing my people.
Yeah.
So far, so good?
So far, so good.
Now,
all right.
Go ahead.
So no, continue.
I was just gonna move on from there. Come and say everything is about results. So I'm not saying, well, I want you to do this process or that process or this thing. And yeah, we are going to teach them processes, but the bottom line is I need to have them learn about results. What are the results that we expect? Remember when we talked about the social contract, we said each person needs to be able to deliver individual results. And we also want them to learn how to work with each other to deliver collective results that are larger than any single person can provide. Now, with that, if I do 1 and 2 properly, it allows me to get a stronger corporate culture, and I've got progress towards my overall purpose. On the other hand, the employees, they want to be paid, but they want to have professional training and growth because that's what allows their career to move forward. And they want to actually have meaningful relationships, and they actually want to do meaningful work. Now, work becomes meaningful if I'm learning and it's enhancing my career, regardless of the task. So I know that I need to actually accomplish that. The only way I know how to do that is if I literally focus on results. And as you can see on our little napkin, there are 4 areas where we focus.
Yeah, and I think so. The areas or dimensions of results, and I think that really is important to keep in mind. And I don't want to overstate or understate or somehow skip over this idea that I think that people do really have noble ideas when it comes to training. People say, "Oh, this is how you do your job." I want you to, this is how you. This is how you type in this thing into the cash register. This is how you give people change. This is how you take their card for payment. This is how you package the things. All the things that go into it, but that may not be the result that people are looking at when they're coming to your establishment, when they're coming to your store, when they're coming to your business. They may be looking for more than that, and understanding these dimensions of results helps you focus your training activity on some of the things that you need to make sure that you're imparting upon your team, right?
Right. And the other side of that is as you grow, okay, we have a mechanism that we'll talk about after we talk about training and growth of your people, for how do I grow and keep the focus on results? Because
Right.
too often, as I grow too big, people will fall into this thing called competency frameworks. And we'll talk about competency frameworks later and all that stuff. So people are looking at, well, if I learn more and I grow more, then I can get, more raises and things like that. The problem is the minute I'm focusing on competency frameworks, I'm not focusing on the actual results that are client results. So again, that'll be a future conversation. Don't want to get into that right now. But the key is, you see, the promise of employers regarding people's growth is very specific. Okay? It's about helping them develop their ability to generate results that the company produces. That's the promise. They don't promise to have their intercommunication be wonderful or their conflict resolution. Sometimes if that's needed as part of the results, then that's fine. But it's got to be tied to an overall objective to how do I generate results that give the customers what they want and they give me the profit that I want and or that actually grow other people.
And if we don't communicate what it's tied to, clearly, people will just tie it to other things. And that's the problem, right? And I think many times in organizations, we fail to clearly tie their activity to a result that is actually relevant and valued by our clients and relevant and valued by the company in terms of profit and shareholders. Those things are loosely tied together. People are making leaps of logic. It sits in those invisible communication channels we talked about before. Everybody's got a different story. And when that happens, it can't be all about results because people are thinking about different things. People think they're contributing to it when they're not. And this is why it's so important. So let's go through these dimensions of results. You've got three circles in sort of a bed. Let's talk about this.
Okay, so the first one is technical results. So based on whatever the company's expertise is, if I'm in an expert-driven organization or an expertise-driven services company, then I want to continue to grow as a professional with the technical expertise. And that one all by itself is huge because there are so many different layers to grow and, for growth and learning as far as that's concerned. So it's absolutely one of the aspects that continues to occur on an ongoing basis because the stronger the expertise of my people, the stronger the deliverable my clients will get, bigger value for their buck as far as that's concerned.
Yeah. And this is probably the one where people spend the most time because it's something that's, generally speaking, acquirable in the world. You can find places to train people with technical expertise, right?
Absolutely. Whether I'm a medical doctor, whether I'm a physical therapist, whether I'm a chiropractor, whether I'm a massage therapist, or whether I'm an architect, an engineer, whether I conduct training, whether I'm actually a stone and tile person, or whether I'm a quantity surveyor, or doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's technical trades, skilled trades, technical trades, or professional services, or anything that's, e-learning companies. It doesn't matter what kind of company, if it's based on the expertise of their people, there's lots and lots of room to grow, and people are really good at tapping that because they know that they have to keep growing that. Although to do it in an organized manner gets really interesting. And the question is, how do I do it so that I'm not competing with the ability to generate the result for the client? And that's what we'll talk about in our next napkin. But so technical results, one.
Okay. The next one being financial results.
Correct. So financial results, that's to generate results that are fiscally feasible and sustainable. In other words, I have to be able to deliver for my client in a way that's within the mandate they've requested and that leaves our company with a profit. Because if the company doesn't have a profit, you know what they say, a business without a profit is a hobby.
Yes.
Okay. So we don't want to turn the business into a hobby, because that's not sustainable for the benefit of the employees because they won't have a place to work eventually. So that's not good. So the key is how do I, and especially when people go to different levels, the more they understand about the fiscal sensitivities associated with their profession or their craft, the better everything goes. And that's one of the areas that people just assume and they don't get training on, but that is one of the dimensions of training. And again, there's tons of depth in that side.
Yeah. And tons of depth in that side, but this is starting to become a little bit more of an area, which is a little bit more of the secret sauce of an organization. Some organizations are really good at this and obviously deliver a lot of freedom to the leadership of the organization when they do that, right?
Absolutely. Although it's interesting because in a lot of service-based businesses, especially what I'll call social services, okay, people don't like the ugly P word, that profit motivation, because they're like, well, we're not out here just for profit. We want to make sure we take care of our people. And I say, okay, so does it need to be cost effective? Oh yeah, it has to be cost effective. Otherwise we can't afford to do it. Okay, so let's not call it profitable. Let's call it cost effective. And they're like, oh, okay, we're good with that. In other words, as long as somebody's not just money grubbing. The other thing that people get concerned about is that if I talk about the fiscal aspects, I may risk putting my people under my thumb, or they may feel like I've got them under my thumb. And as a result, I'm just driving for a number. And that's a real valid fear that people have, because too often, if you look at 20th century business, that's exactly what happened. Is people became a cog in the system and their job was to spit out profit. Well, no, the fiscal aspects of the business, you still need to keep track of them because you don't have a sustainable business without that. So, and the other side of it is I can look at what are the training needs I need to provide for people to support them so that it is fiscally sustainable. Because if it's not fiscally sustainable, you know what? What do they say? If your output if your output exceeds your income, your upkeep will be your downfall. Okay. So in other words, I can't spend more than I make. I got to make sure that it works. So I want to grow the expertise of my people while at the same time keeping myself within the bounds of what actually continues to work. Let's just say that. Yeah. It doesn't have to be having people under your thumb. In fact, as we continue along with this whole series, you'll see how it's anything but that.
And the thing is, if you rethink it, going back to the core, if you rethink the core, if you rethink all of this stuff to make it more inclusive and aligned, strategically aligned, then it is not putting people under their thumb. It is making sure that people understand what needs to be done to drive the results of the organization. What is important to be part of the core, right?
Yeah. And what we'll talk about in our next session is how do we actually have that not just be what's in the best service or the best, the best for the corporation. It's also what's best for them.
Yeah. And I said
organization, so it will also be best for them, not just the organization. Because if you don't align that stuff, they're like, okay, well, they're claiming not to have me under their thumb. They're claiming that I'm not a cog in the system. And then they proceed to treat me like a cog in the system when it's under someone's thumb. And they made it other pretty words. Well, no, it's actually not that. So you're going to have to stay tuned to the next episode for that one.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So dimension result number 1 was technical. Then we went to financial. Number 3 is human. What does that mean?
Okay. So here's the thing. What you want, see, part of the result is how do we make it easier to work with each other and build stronger relationships with clients and with customers and with each other. So what we find is, okay, so Govind, you've been on different teams over time. Mm-hmm. When you have people that really communicate well and they just sort of jive, how productive are those teams?
Unbelievably.
And how about profitable?
Always.
See, so part of the results, and have you also been on teams where it's not been like that? Where it's kind of been like, lack of communication and people stumbling and stuff like that?
Yeah.
And what about the profitability of those teams?
Not sustainable. Let's put it that way. I mean, you could have profit for a while, but it's whack-a-mole.
How much fun is it working there?
None.
You see, so the truth is that the stuff we're talking about aligns for everybody. So it's better for the company because the owners are more profitable, but at the same time, it's better for everybody because everybody enjoys the process. They're able to learn, they're able to contribute, they're able to have more fun, and they're actually able to appreciate and grow relationships where everybody wins. Now, it's not like some well-intended Pollyanna kumbaya around the campfire thing. It's actually just functionally working together to accomplish something that everybody feels good about in a way that works for each other. And as long as we create an environment that allows for that, we're in pretty good shape. So part of that is the human result. How do we actually make it easier to work with each other? How do we make it easier to develop those relationships with our clients and customers? And that's when I talk about human results. That's a dimension of results. And that takes conscious, active work. But if somebody learns it, they're in good shape. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think this is so important because I think that when people think about strategy and systems and processes, they tend to, there's a tendency to get more complex. But truly, strategy is easier with, it's faster, easier, permanent, simple. And while the execution can be adaptable, this idea of the human element, how do we make it easier? If we're always thinking about how do we make it easier, how do we make it easier for us to relate to each other within the team, and how do we make it easier for us to relate to our customers? How do we make it easier to relate with leadership? All of these factors, that is where strategy really lives, right?
Now, it's interesting you bring that up because, and I don't know whether we've talked about this before, but if we haven't, I'm going to talk about it here. And if we have, I'm going to talk about it here anyway. Because we've talked about a lot over the course of this series. As a company grows, it will outstrip its structures time and time and time again. It's constantly outstripping its structures. So what happens is that, and now while it's outstripping its structures, the company's adding people. So I've got a compound effect of structures that are inadequate and need to be replaced combined with more people, which makes things more complex. I think we have referred to this before. Here's the thing. As it gets more complex, it gets freakier to have to deal with. So what I then try to do is to put in structures that'll constrain my people and try to get them to do what I need them to do. Okay. What we're talking about is the opposite of that. You see, that's building a system like a well-oiled machine. If I want to build an intelligent ecosystem, it has to be built for everybody, which means this larger, more complex group of people, I actually have to figure out how do I set up structures that actually make it easier for them to bring their best. Now, the good news on this is if I look at the development of my structures with that perspective in mind, it's actually easier to come up with them. So is it obvious? No, it's not always obvious, but I gotta tell you, there are ways to do it. How do I build structures that really make it easier for people to bring their best? The truth is, if I've hired right, I've got, a company full of people who want to bring their best. I can get in their way by constraining systems. And I got to tell you, I will lose their commitment very quickly. But if I keep focusing on how do I bring those structures in place that will support people to be their best, that this ties into the human result. So as I outstrip my structures, what am I bringing to the table to continue to make it easier for people to actually do the stuff they want to be doing? And as it relates to generating results for clients, for the company, and for the people themselves in terms of their professional growth. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes a lot of sense. And I think this idea, when you talk about outstripping structures, it's as simple as, it can be as, I say simple, it's not simple, outgrowing an accounting system, but it can be also just reporting structures. It can be collaboration structures. It can be technical approval structures. And this is why I think the dimensions of results are so important, because you're talking about technical, financial, human. And the last one being S, sustainable. What are you referring to there?
Well, actually, let's go back to what you said before, because that directly hits the sustainable. So you say, outgrowing the accounting system. What if I outgrow the accounting team? I now need 6 people and I've got 4. And I try to, I'm running people thin. Okay. I need sustainability results. I need to generate the results without wearing my people out. Okay. Or without unnecessarily using up other resources that I'm going to need in order to flourish over the longer period of time. So I need to make sure that we're sustainable. I need to make sure that we have enough profit coming in the door so that we can fund the growth that we need, so we can fund that new accounting system, so we can fund those 2 extra people in the finance department, so that we can fund the customer service personnel that actually support the sales effort and the production effort so that people can actually work really well together. And I've got to figure out, how do I do that? Well, guess what? That's a dimension of results. So we're looking at the technical results, we're looking at the financial results, we're looking at the human results, as well as the sustainability of the results, so that we actually, if somebody's learning in all 4 of those dimensions, do you actually get how much depth they'll gain in terms of their own career development?
Yeah, it's incredible.
So there's no shortage of stuff to do there. The key is, how do you do that without actually splaying the owners and the senior leaders so thin that they're focused on their people rather than the actual results for the clients.
Yeah, and I think this is, I want to bring it back to this. Mm-hmm. The end goal here is winning freedom in the business from the business, and because of the business. So freedom in the business, freedom from the business, and freedom because of the business. And these are the ways, these are the considerations. This series is all about the tools that we need to consider so that we can achieve that outcome, correct?
Absolutely. And while each of these 4 dimensions of results are based on a focus on client deliverables, okay, there's plenty there for people to learn, okay, from the owners. There's plenty of them there to learn from the leaders and the managers, and there's also plenty for them to learn from each other. So the thing is that, and this is the stuff that actually helps them grow in their career. Yeah. But it also aligns with the very specific promise that employers have, which is to make sure that people's growth is very specific. Because what we said we'd do is we'd actually help them develop their ability to generate results. Okay. And it's the results that the client produces, or that the company produces for its clients, its owners, and each other, basically. So we're very specific. These are dimensions. There's tons of depth and breadth in the dimensions. Nobody's going to run short on it. And it's still inside a very tight system that allows people to grow that way. So rather than just sort of brainstorming about possible things people could learn, it's actually, you really are committed to training people on the things that matter to them, matter to the company, and matter to the customer.
Yeah, and helping them understand the link that is important, as opposed to filling that gap with things that they think it could be, but really don't understand.
Right. But the other side of that is that it also allows them to grow their depth and breadth as professionals. There's no shortage of stuff to learn in there.
Yeah. And there's a whole conversation we can have about passion, and we're going to get there in a second. But Michael, thank you. Another great episode.
Welcome.
What an incredible conversation with Michael Walsh. Once again, he challenged us to think deeper and lead better. We often say it's all about results, but today we learned that not all results are created equally. Michael's napkin gives us a framework to rethink the path to success. T for technical, F for financial, H for human, S for sustainable. He reminded us that training and growing our people isn't a side project, it's the main thing, and that true freedom in your business and from your business comes when you align these 4 dimensions. Let's take a second to recap some big ideas from today. Training is the driver of results. If your people aren't growing, your results won't either. Results have dimensions. Technical, financial, and human outcomes must be pursued in harmony. And sustainability is the glue. If you can't sustain it, you can't scale it. Human metrics matter. Culture, energy, and alignment are as measurable as revenue. And freedom is designed. And that design starts with clarity across all dimensions. So, here's the challenge. What's one dimension you've been neglecting? What would it look like to bring it into balance? Write it down, snap a photo, and share it on social with the hashtag Paper Napkin Wisdom, and tag someone who needs this reminder right now. And if this episode sparked something in you, do me a favor, hit subscribe, leave a review, and share this conversation with someone who's building something that matters. Because every napkin holds a breakthrough. And when you take the time to see it, it changes. Until next time, remember, great leaders aren't born, they're drawn, one napkin at a time. Make it a great day.